Headline: A Closed Door. The self-inflicted injury threatening U.S. tourism and stirring domestic discontent. On a recent summer afternoon, an international family waited for their long-awaited U.S. visa appointment, a process dogged by unpredictability and delays. Their story, echoing across countless embassies and consulates worldwide, is symptomatic of a larger predicament. The U.S. tourism industry, once a beacon for global travelers and a significant economic engine, now grapples with what many describe as a self-inflicted injury. With protracted visa backlogs, shifting immigration policies, and uneven global relations, the world's largest economy is facing a hospitality crisis of its own making, one that has frustrated local businesses and angered many Americans who depend on the sector for their livelihoods. Recent protests by tourism workers, testimonials from disappointed business owners, and growing media scrutiny have shone a spotlight on this issue. The once crowded streets of Orlando, New York, and Los Angeles bear witness to a new reality for U.S. tourism. At its crux is the intersection of bureaucracy and geopolitics, raising pressing questions about the industry's trajectory and its meaning for American communities. 2. Background and context. Historical perspective. For decades, the United States stood as the world's premier tourist destination, boasting world-renowned attractions from the Grand Canyon to Broadway, Disney World to Yellowstone. According to data from the U.S. Travel Association, international visitors contributed over $233 billion to the U.S. economy in 2019, supporting more than 1.2 million American jobs. U.S. soft power. The nation's ability to attract through culture and prosperity was inextricably linked to vibrant tourism and easy accessibility. Key stakeholders involved. The industry's stakeholders are diverse. They include small businesses such as independent hotels and guides, multinational hospitality corporations, transportation companies, federal agencies like the Department of State, and local city governments. At the heart are employees, millions of Americans whose economic stability relies on robust visitor flows. Current challenges and opportunities. The COVID-19 pandemic devastated international travel, but the United States rebounded slower than competitors. While destinations in Europe and Asia adopted measures to ease entry, such as expedited visas, digital health passes, and aggressive marketing, the U.S. maintained stringent entry requirements well into 2022. Even as pandemic policies eased, new obstacles emerged: visa processing delays, limited appointment availability, and a backlog described as the most severe in decades. These bottlenecks matter not only for travelers, but also for the communities and businesses that host them. U.S. Travel Association, Economic Impact of International Travelers on the U.S. Economy, 2019. 3. Main arguments. Primary supporting evidence. Recent figures highlight the scope of the challenge. As of mid-2023, average wait times for a first-time visitor visa interview exceeded 400 days in several major source markets, including India and Brazil. The World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, estimates that in 2022, the U.S. lost out on nearly $100 billion in potential tourism revenues due to visitor obstacles. Jobs in the sector remain below pre-pandemic levels, disproportionately affecting low-income and immigrant communities that depend heavily on hospitality work. Expert opinions and data. Roger Dow, former CEO of the U.S. Travel Association, described the delays as a self-inflicted wound, emphasizing that policy bottlenecks, not just global economic headwinds, are inhibiting the sector's recovery. Academics in hospitality and public policy echo these concerns. Professor Pauline Sheldon, a tourism management expert, notes that prolonged entry hurdles foster negative international perceptions, diminishing America's appeal as a destination. Such sentiments have practical effects. Survey data from Skift showed 37% of leisure travelers reconsidered or abandoned U.S. travel due to visa uncertainty in 2023. Real-world examples and case studies. Consider Orlando, Florida, a city historically reliant on international travelers, particularly from the United Kingdom and Brazil. Local resort managers report occupancy rates for international visitors significantly lagging behind 2019 figures. Similarly, Las Vegas casinos and California's wine country cite staffing cutbacks and shuttered attractions, a direct result of fewer foreign guests. The effects ripple outward. Artists, taxi drivers, and souvenir vendors all face diminished incomes. Balancing anecdotal evidence is the experience within New York City's hotel sector. While U.S.-based tourism rebounded, international revenue lagged, with Chinatown and Broadway's businesses suffering visible drops in patronage from once steady flows of European and Asian travelers. U.S. Department of State, Visa Appointment Wait Times, 2023, World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC Economic Impact Report, 2022. Roger Dow, interview with NPR, May 2023. Skift Research, Traveler Intentions and Barriers to U.S. Entry, 2023. Counter-arguments and analysis, alternative viewpoints. While many blame government inefficiency, others cite necessary security measures and overwhelmed consular resources as underlying causes for delays. Advocates for tight border controls argue that thorough vetting reflects prudent policy, especially in a global landscape marked by recurring security threats. Officials in the State Department contend that the revival of international travel post-pandemic presented an unprecedented surge in demand, requiring both funding and legislative action to expand capacity safely. Moreover, some industry analysts propose that the downturn in inbound tourism is offset by the rise in domestic travel. Americans have increasingly explored their own country, supporting internal tourism economies that previously leaned on foreign visitors. Addressing potential objections. Cost-benefit debates abound. Critics of relaxed entry note that rapid visa processing could increase risks or reduce the opportunity for thorough vetting. However, industry advocates argue that reputational damage and economic losses far exceed marginal enhancements to security. Questions of federal funding and priorities further complicate the discourse. Overstretched embassies often lack the resources to expand consular staff or to modernize processing infrastructure. Lawmakers find themselves weighing fiscal conservatism against the potential for billion-dollar returns from increased tourism, a politically fraught landscape, especially during election cycles. Balanced consideration of complexities. Thus, observers are left to grapple with competing imperatives: secure borders and economic vitality. Solutions seldom satisfy all. Calls to streamline policy must be squared with the nation's security posture and its values regarding openness and inclusiveness. The challenge lies as much in perception, America as a welcoming destination, as in operational realities on the ground. V implications and future outlook. Short-term and long-term impacts. In the short term, U.S. destinations that relied heavily on foreign visitors see direct and indirect economic drag, with hospitality job growth stunted and business closures persisting in major tourist corridors. Over the longer term, the risk may be reputational. Competitors like Canada, the United Kingdom, and United Arab Emirates are positioning themselves as more accessible alternatives, seeking to capture eager travelers shut out of the U.S. market. There are also intangible costs. International students and business visitors, often arriving first as tourists, reconsider their willingness to invest or study in the United States. The friendship dividends that historically accrued from American openness, international goodwill, cultural exchange, and soft power diminish in the face of persistent barriers. Potential solutions or recommendations. Proposals to address the crisis vary. Some analysts recommend targeted increases in consular staffing paired with modernized, digitalized application systems designed to reduce bottlenecks. Pilot programs for trusted traveler designations, expedited interviews for low-risk applicants, and greater information transparency are among the solutions under debate. Industry advocacy groups push for bipartisan congressional action to dedicate resources to the issue, suggesting that even modest government investment could yield significant economic returns. Call to action or next steps. Although the discourse around these proposals is often contentious, there remains broad support among industry leaders and many policymakers for making the U.S. more accessible, balancing legitimate security interests with the demands of a globally interconnected economy. The outcome will depend on the will to prioritize this crisis amid competing policy agendas. The story of American tourism's recent struggles is, in many respects, one of paradox and missed opportunity. The United States commands unrivaled cultural allure and natural beauty, yet risks alienating its most eager visitors through obstacles of its own making. For those whose fortunes are entwined with the hospitality industry, this self-inflicted injury evokes both anger and disappointment, a response not just to lost revenue, but to a perceived narrowing of the American spirit itself. The path forward demands sober reflection and decisive action. The stakes reach beyond economics into matters of national image, cultural exchange, and America's continued role as a crossroads for the world's people. Whether the country will reclaim its openness or cede its prominence to nimbler rivals will be determined not by circumstance, but by the choices made in the months and years to come.